All right, I heard this one's pretty good, but I'm not gonna watch this today because he just did it. So I want to give it a couple days, let it fester a little. But I did tell Yeatle I'd watch this eventually, and I kind of forgot to. And it's his The Fall of Ball video. I can already imagine what this is gonna end up being. But for those who didn't see the SVB podcast, he talked about it, and I was like, oh shit, like I haven't seen it yet. You called me reacting to it, and he was like, yeah. So 1,291 comments. That's never good. On a video with 137K views, 1,300 comments means there's a war going on down here, and I ain't going near it. You know, actually, let's make a prediction take. Ball doesn't work in 5v5 because there's not another tank to frontline while Ball does its things. There's too many ways to counter Ball. Sombra just turns them off. You actually can't get value out of the pile drives and slams anymore because like everyone has escapes / boops / sleeps / CCs, and he doesn't do enough damage to frontline and maintain. So Ball just kind of useless and will always be worse than Winston or even Diva. All right, let's see.
Often come by my streams and they're surprised. People often come by my streams and they're surprised to see that I very rarely play Ball. Sometimes even on YouTube, I'll get comments asking when the next Ball video will be. And the reason I stopped playing Ball as much is...
Wait, this is like me with Ryan sometimes. Although, to be fair, Ball's definitely a worse spot than Ryan. But I got so tired of just being bullied by tank meta picks or support meta picks or whatever, so I don't play nearly as much Ryan as I used to. Oh no.
Is because he's just worse than he used to be in every way. But I think to explain that, I have to start by explaining why he was good. In Overwatch 1, each team had 2 tanks. Crazy, right?
2 tanks. Man, okay. You know, maybe at some point I'll weigh in on the 2 tank conversation, but honestly, I just don't care right now. I genuinely just don't give a shit. So, I don't know.
One tank was the initiator, and the other was the enabler. Wrecking Ball was the first tank to do both of those things
Love
very
the
well.
content. Your content is one of the few reasons I continue to play and love this game.
These are 3 months. I'm gonna mute alerts for a little bit just to get through this, but I appreciate 3 months. Much love, man.
Speed and tankiness put him way above the rest, but then you throw in a boop and a pile driver, and you have arguably the most flexible tank in Overwatch.
Yeah, Ball was really good in Overwatch 1.
He could tank, he could hit, and he could run. The catch was you had to be good, and I'm not talking about good out of...
Yes. I will always say the skill cap, or like the amount of mechanical skill and game sense it took to play Ball, was way higher than all the other tanks, and all the Ball players who were really good at Ball were just cracked. They were so insanely good at the game. So insanely good at the game. And I wish I could be them sometimes. Not anymore, but at that time.
Overwatch. I mean good at Wrecking Ball, which is an entirely different skill.
Yes.
You had to have basically a degree in grapple physics. But I digress. With this flexibility, he had so many different plays he could make. Let's start with the plays that involved enemy tanks. There was a play where if a tank overpeaked, a Ball who set up behind could knock them in or out of cover.
True.
This often led to that tank getting punished or a lot of cooldowns being used to save him.
True.
Needless to say, the new tank knockback reduction in combination with every tank just having way more health makes this play pretty much useless. So booping tanks is useless. What about 1v1ing tanks? Back in Overwatch 1, it was a more viable option since they had less health. Using all your cooldowns on that one tank probably meant they were going to die in the next 2 seconds. Now it's very difficult to ever win the 1v1 because, again, more health, but also a lot of them have
I never
more
thought about it that
utility.
way.
The utility that Wrecking Ball got was a quicker pile driver, but you're not really going to get the opportunity to use a pile driver more than once in a single 1v1. So it's safe to say that his 1v1 game versus tanks scaled very poorly. So for the most part, tanks make up one less hero that Ball can play against. Or wait, actually 2, because there was 2 tanks, right? Yeah, so there's 2 characters that you don't get to play against. Surely this means you get to play against the other 4 heroes, right? I mean, they don't have an extra tank to protect them, so that should make things easier. Allow me to introduce mobility creep. Every new hero has...
This was brought up so many times on that podcast, and I was like, yeah, you know what, that's right, but I haven't heard many people talk about it other than Yeatle and Spilo did during that podcast that much. I don't actually mind mobility creep. I think it's okay. But I'm sure he's going to make a really good point here, but I never thought... He makes a really good point about the tank thing. I never thought about that. Never thought about how good Ball was versus tanks, and he was. This is why I think it's really important when people who are, like, very, very high-skilled talk about certain characters. They should get listened to. a little more than people that are just like general public who are like, well, yeah, I don't like this character. Fuck off, okay? People who are really good at the characters sometimes have a little bit of a better opinion because they're a little bit more experienced. So, you know, I never thought about it that way. I respect it.
Has mobility, and even the older ones got better mobility. This means two things. One, they can all chase Wrecking Ball better, and two, they can all run from him better. But hey, at least we got rid of stuns, right? Oh wait, there's still Sleep Dart, Hack, Nade, Hook, Punch, Javelin.
Well, yeah, that's because honestly the balance team has lost the plot at this point. Like, the best part of Overwatch 2 going in was less shields and way less CC, and we literally got rid of that. So,
and 20 plus boops or slows to completely deny an engagement.
They adopted this philosophy of soft CC being okay. And it's like, it's the same shit. It's not really that much different. The only difference is I get to slightly move my character instead of not getting to move my character at all.
You know, the worst part is when you finally manage to jump past all these hurdles, all it takes is one cleanse. Who am I kidding? Even if there is no cleanse, any damage Ball does just gets out healed, especially if he's the only.
You know what the worst part of this is too? I know this because I recently, I think Crap uploaded a TikTok of me playing Ryan, and I literally got like a 5-man slam, and I killed nobody, and all the comments are full of, what did you expect, to 1v5 them? Yes. If I shatter 5 people and stun them, I want at least 1 kill. Because swing, fire strike should be enough. Because that's what it was. In Overwatch 1, when there was two tanks, now it's 1 tank. I think that there's become this almost infection, especially in newer players, where tanks literally like don't have rights to kill. Like, you literally don't have rights to kill. And it's like, well, you need teammates to follow up. You should have a Tracer or a Sombra there. Dude, this is an Overwatch League. This is literally the highest caliber of the game in ranked, like high top 500, and you're still not going to have that type of follow-up because it's ranked. It's not competitive team play. Like, it's a different world. It's ranked. And that's what the game is. It's ranked. So people like hard focus on this idea of like, well, you need someone else there helping you. It's like, should you? Like, if a tank 1v1s you off to the side and hits all of its cooldowns on you and hits all of its shots on you, should it lose? No.
Mobile hero on the team. You might say, okay, just don't play Ball if he's the only mobile hero, which fair enough. But my point is, it wasn't always like that. He was the most flexible tank. Getting all these abilities out meant that your other tank got to play the game. But now it just means you're on the wrong hero. A play Wrecking Ball was exceptionally good at was diving snipers. The idea was he had the mobility to jump on them, and if he did, his team would be able to freely rotate or challenge the enemy team.
Yep.
Oftentimes,
Widow players hate Ball players. Actually, I don't even know if you don't even see that much Ball slander anymore. But I remember back in Overwatch 1, all the sniper players like screamed about how OP Ball was. I think Jay still sometimes does out of habit, but like Ball's so bad now, like you never hear him say it. But if you ever plays against the Ball, you might hear him like, Ball players. That is literally an Overwatch 1 reaction, because Overwatch 2 Ball is not that scary.
Sniper may get pocketed by a hero like Mercy, but that was fine because Wrecking Ball could actually threaten...
That is, I'm not joking. That is literal leftover Overwatch 1 reactions. I'm not joking. That's legitimate truth.
The Mercy, so it was a 2v1 he had a chance of winning. So nowadays, not only are you asking your tankless team to try and push into a team that has a tank that can actually kill them, but you're also trying to win a 2v1 that's a million times harder because they gave Mercy the tap straight from Apex Legends, so she's basically unshootable.
Oh no, the Mercy players are coming for you.
But yeah, despite being a buffed solo tank, they somehow managed to make this interaction less favorable for the tank. Ball has to go in and make space, whereas before he didn't. He could rely on his other tank to take some hits or protect the team. Now, if Ball doesn't go in immediately, his team quite literally has...
You know, sorry to keep pausing, but I read a take on the podcast that it was very interesting, and they were like, you know, it's very weird that the tank players seem to be the most sensible players when it comes to balance. And when when we were all talking, most of us were talking about like nerfing our own characters or nerfing other tanks. when tanks aren't even the problem. It's DPS and support. Actually, sorry, not really DPS. It's mostly support and DPS CC. So like random things like May and Cast Grenade. You know what I mean? Like annoying shit that got added. Like DPS overall is mostly fine, but like the extra shit that got added is the problem. But it's mostly support / CC creep. That's become the big problem. But a lot of us were like, yeah, like you could turn this back or tune this back. And, you know, in some ways, I feel like tank players are almost more honorable. And like we are willing to sit there and go, yeah, this is like, you know, this is too strong, or we could probably tune this way or tune this that way. But it feels like when you're talking about the other roles, it's just like a screaming contest of like buff my character to the moon, you know? And I don't feel like it's like that for tanks. You ever notice that, like online, especially like when people have debates and talk about characters or talk about balance or talk about anything, like it's mostly like DPS or support that are talking about their characters being buffed to the moon. Except maybe Doom players. Like sometimes you see random like Doom players like buff Doom, and it's like Doom's fine, dude. You know, like other than that though, it's mostly like the tank players that are like very sensible. And I feel like it's because we have such a good, we have to think about so many things outside of just, oh, someone's running at me, I must kill them or survive, you know?
Has no front line.
I don't know. Maybe that's a bit egotistical, but I feel that way, so.
No front line. Since there's no other tank to worry about, the enemy team can keep tabs and use all their cooldowns on him, because denying the one tank from making space is one of the most valuable plays you can make in Overwatch 2.
True.
A concept I didn't really go into is the idea of countering tanks in Overwatch 2. It was kind of implied when I mentioned CC, but I want to take an extra moment just to emphasize that this wasn't half the problem that it is now.
And people are so obsessed with the idea of, well, I counterpicked because I'm smart enough and I know game sense. I could train an orangutan that if it saw a Reinhardt, click the Orisa button. I could train a monkey that if it saw a picture of Wrecking Ball to click on the picture of Sombra. I could train a literal monkey to do that. That's not skill. Yes, some characters should have slight advantages in certain situations. Like, that was the whole reason Brig was made, because Tracer was too strong. I'm not saying get rid of it entirely, but people are so latched on, and they know, every Overwatch player knows the tank counters now. They all know it. Every game is tank diff, you know, tank swamp. Everyone knows it, but no one knows the other ones, versus DPS versus supports, because they don't care, because all it is everyone focuses on the tank.
Let's look at the worst defender, Ball versus Sombra. She had the D-stealth to hack you, which means you could cancel hack or engage quick enough to where it didn't matter. Not only that, but even if she did get the hack off, Ball wasn't the only source of space making, so if you lived, it was fine. Just try again. Now, that skill matchup is almost non-existent, because not only can she hack you in stealth, Sombra can literally spend the entire game invisible hacking Ball. Its value, because that's the DPS for a tank.
Yes, I've literally done that as the Sombra player. Like, when I've played Sombra in actual, like, low GM games on DPS, if they have a ball, I literally just sit invisible and chase the ball around. Every time he goes to power drive my team, beep, boop, beep, boop, because he does the swing up, and then he drops into my team 1v5, and he's just like, his little legs are flicking around. He's like, oh god, what do I do? And then he gets slept, antied, Suzu'd, boom, 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 and the supports just delete him. Like,
talk about his ultimate. In Overwatch 1, it was easily at least an A-tier ultimate because of how quick it farmed, how good it was at splitting teams, and just
true, mine used to be insane.
Now I'd say it competes with Doom ult for the worst tank ultimate.
That's a little far.
Tanks are unfazed by it. Their health lets them eat half a minefield, and the knockback stops them from bouncing from mine to mine. A lot of ultimates can counter it and get more value. And then there's also abilities that straight up counter an ultimate. Oh, and let me remind you guys that mobility creep happened, so most heroes have no problem dodging it, and if they happen to be one of the few heroes that can't just mobility away, then there's plenty of new get-out-jail-free cards. So let's get some bullet points here.
Wait, what did that say? Sojourn Orb? Cleanse, Life Grip, Sojourn Orb, Bastionade, Shout. Wait. Sojourn Orb is a mobility? What?
Plenty of new get-out-jail-free cards. So let's get some bullet points here. If the enemy team wants to win...
Maybe he meant that versus mine? Like killing the minefield? I don't know about Shout either. Yeah, I'm not really sure about those. I mean, maybe he means that as like mobility creep for like a tank, maybe, because you technically go faster, maybe? I'm not sure.
All they need to do is stop Wrecking Ball's engagement, which is...
Sojourn Orb used to have a slow? Yeah, but this didn't come out. This came out a month ago. That got taken out back in like December.
a lot easier
For those who don't know, it's September 29th, 2023.
to do now because he's the only tank they have to worry about. He can't outmuscle any of the tanks. There's just as many, if not more, stuns, boops, and slows in Overwatch 2 than there were in Overwatch 1.
Yes.
Every new hero
Dude, people don't talk about that. It really is just like Overwatch 1 again.
has mobility, a lot of the old ones got more. And then lastly, Minefield got demoted to competing for the worst tank ult. I mean, that's as good of a list as
I think it's a
any,
little bit
just
of an
not
over-exaggeration, but I
So
see his
what would I
point.
change about Ball? Well, 6v6 is off the table, so the second best thing.
Yeah, that's okay. I've been asked a million times, like, I heard Your Overwatch had a video. I heard Samino made a couple videos. Everyone's talking about 6v6. Guys, it's literally not going to happen. They rebuilt the whole engine for 5v5. There's no chance. Unless they literally make an Overwatch 3, there is no 6v6. There's probably a better chance of 4v4 than 6v6 ever happening.
Would be to make him a DPS. There's a lot of balancing that has to happen there, but making him smaller and with less health is probably the closest thing we'll get to that Overwatch 1 playstyle, where you make space for your tank or your tank makes space for you. Chances are that's probably off the table too, so I guess they could buff him to make him like broken and then inevitably nerf him the next patch. I'm thinking something like make him CC immune while adaptive shields are up. I'm talking no stuns, no slows, and
That's risky. That's very risky. That would literally break the character. I think you're a little bit off the deep end at that point.
no boops. Just ball gameplay at its best.
Yeah, no.
I think that would be very
Yeah, no, that you're nuts. I'm sorry, Yeatle, you're off the deep end on that one. That 1,000 HP, no CC immunity. Oh, absolutely not. Zero chance on that. But I understand the point he's trying to make. I understand, and the point he's trying to make is that what he was saying, like literally back here. I'll let this part replay before I.
tank makes space for you. Chances are that's probably off the table too, so I guess they could buff him to make him like broken, and
That's what he's talking about. Buffing him to make him broken. Because the character is not going to ever be good. I mean, remember I made tier lists back in like season 2 or season 3? Go back and find them. Go back in season 2, season 3 tier lists. When I made tier lists, I said, hey, Ball is not good. But it's not because Ball's not good. It's because he just doesn't work. Like Ball just doesn't work. He's just not meta. And if you buff Ball, you'll break him. And then that's what happened. I literally called it. I'm not joking. I have literal proof of this. You can go back and find it. So what he's saying isn't actually to
inevitably nerf him the next
hopefully
patch.
not
I'm
actually
thinking
give them
something like make him CC
anti-CC,
while adaptive
because that would be
shields are up.
broken.
I'm
But
talking no stuns,
that's like the point.
no slows, and no boops. Just ball gameplay at its best. I think that would be very
and I think he's memeing a little bit with his whole like at its best. He's memeing a little bit. So give him a little bit of give him a little bit of leeway on that. But point still stands.
very fun. Maybe not for everybody else, but definitely for the ball player. There is one change that I feel like they could
He's
reasonably
memeing,
make
he's
that
memeing.
wouldn't make ball OP, but would just make him way more enjoyable. And that would be to make it so that he doesn't get body blocked. It just doesn't make any sense that a character named the Wrecking Ball can get body blocked by a Tracer. Or any hero for that matter. I don't know, I just find it really annoying where when I know what I'm going for, I set up for it, and maybe somebody
interesting,
accidentally
actually.
blocks my direction.
That actually would be kind of interesting. What if it made it so it gave a very small boop if you were rolling normally? That would be very interesting. Like no matter what, if you were rolling on Ball, like without the grapple swing, like you just rolling, you got the small a small boop. Say like a quarter of how much you would normally get. Like when you grapple and you like swing across the ground for like the fire. You know what I'm talking about? Like the fire boop. What if it only got like a quarter of it or a third or half of that? So it was like a very small boop if you just rolled through them. It doesn't have to do a lot of damage, just a very tiny one. Maybe. I'd be willing to give it that. Like a Ryan swing boop, slightly more than that. Just enough to just slightly like a Winston leap. Yeah. Like just enough to slightly boop them, like a small displace.
So all of a sudden,
Because that would let you save your grapple for like other plays, Because a lot of times when you grapple through them, you fly through, and then you have to like wait a few seconds for your grapple to come back online and then come back around. If you didn't have to do that, you could like come in twice. You know what I mean? Be interesting.
there goes my engagement. It doesn't have to be anything too crazy, just like a passive when he's in ball mode that does a very, very small boop if you roll into somebody. Like nothing.
Yeah,
big.
that's what he's
I'm
saying.
talking like the smallest boop in the game.
Yeah.
That way you just don't get body blocked. It doesn't really solve any of the problems I
Wait.
mentioned earlier.
Wait, did he say that, or did we just have the same idea at the same time? No. Wait, he was alluding to it, so that's what I was like. Wait, what if they did that? But then he just like, straight up said it. So like, did I?
My direction. So
Dude, my brain is fried. Maybe he hadn't totally said it yet.
all of a sudden, there goes my engagement. It doesn't have to be anything too crazy. Just like a
You
passive
pre-watched it?
mode
You think I pre-watch Overwatch content in my free time? You're fucking crazy.
that does a very, very small boop if you roll into somebody. Like nothing big. I'm talking like the smallest boop in the game. That way you just don't get body blocked. It doesn't really solve any of the problems I mentioned earlier, but it would make him more consistent, and I think consistency in this case equals more fun. But let's be real here. Ball will never be the same. Most people don't care, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Just because some old head like me is telling you, back in my day it used to be better, that doesn't mean you can't have fun playing them yourself. Do what you think will bring you long-term enjoyment. For me right now, that's playing other heroes.
I was gonna make the joke, and that is swapping off Wrecking Ball.
It's what I've been doing for months now. Does this mean I'll never play ball again? No, it just means I'm spoiled and will forever be bitter about the state of ball. Anyways, I've been meaning to do this video for a while, so I'm glad to finally get it out there.
I don't even think that
Let me know
means
what
you're
you guys think in
spoiled,
the
though.
comments down below. And as always, thank you for watching, and good luck on the grind.
I don't think that necessarily means you're spoiled, though. Like, I think that we were kind of lied to again in a lot of ways, and I don't think it was a malicious lie. I think there was a lie back in the day when the game swapped from an open queue format to a roll queue format that characters were going to get rebalanced for 2v2, and then they really didn't get rebalanced. They stayed the same, and we had some power creep, and then we went into Overwatch 2, got a small reset. But like a lot of characters didn't get changed. Only a few did. Orisa got changes, Sombra got changes, Doomfist got changes. And then everyone got some small changes. Like Zarya got some small changes. Ryan got some very small changes. Cassidy got some small changes, which made him worse, but also better. Like he was better at dueling, but he was much worse versus tanks. And they wanted to close the gap, so then they made it so he had a slow instead of a flash. And now he just kind of sucks, but also is really annoying to play against. And it was like a lot of characters probably needed changes going forward that didn't get changes. And we figured out Roadhog, for example, was broken or terrible in Season 1. And we're just now getting the reworks in Season 7. So we figured that out a year ago, and it took a year for that to come around. So, like, what, are we going to wait, like, 2 more years before, like, things, like, Wrecking Ball gets his turn? I don't know. But man, does it feel like shit. So I don't actually agree with Yeatle on that. I don't think you're an old head who's just kind of complaining and whining. I think you have every right to talk about it. So anyways,